Hello, my name's James. I'm a portrait photographer from Portsmouth in the UK. You've probably not heard of me, and I welcome you to this, our latest video of my favourite 10. And we are joined by, I was about to say like photography royalty, but when people say things like that, I feel like it puts too much pressure on people. So so I'm not going to do that. But I'm joined by the magnificent Sarah Ferrara. How are you, Sarah, from Northern Italy?
Doing great, thank you very much.
Now, I'm very well, thank you. I didn't know that you were in Lake Garda, and I visited Lake Garda for my 40th birthday, and it's one of the most charming, brilliant places I've ever been to. Whereabouts are you in Lake Garda?
I'm close to Salò on the western side of the lake. Where did you go?
I went to L'Aziz.
Oh, Lazise.
That's it. That's where I went. I went to L'Aziz as well.
That's on the other side of the lake from me, but yes, I know it well. I've got quite a few weddings there as well.
So before we went on, you had a little chat with my daughter, who's 4, and I reminded her that we went to Lake Garda, and I showed her on the map. I went to Google Maps, and I said, "Do you remember going here and going this?" She said, "I remember the Invisible Man." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And what it was a thing like one of these street artists. You chuck a couple of euros in, and he does a little dance for you. But she was saying, I was scared by the Invisible Man. We had so many meals, so many lovely trips on boats, so many hiking, all these different things, and that's the one thing she remembers.
Yeah, she's traumatised now.
Luckily, traumatised only by invisible men, so you can't see him, can't be that bad, right? I assume, I don't know. How's lockdown? Because obviously, this is a genuinely serious point. Lockdown affected Italy weeks before us. So you've got
Lombardy in particular, yeah.
Okay, so you're kind of in the future as to where now, from my understanding, and I've said this to a couple of people, from people that I know who have friends in Italy and Spain and places that have been severely affected a few weeks ahead of us, when we first went into lockdown and people weren't taking it too seriously or whatever, or we didn't shut the schools quickly enough and all that kind of stuff, I'm not wishing to get political, but from the people who are in mainland Europe, they were like, it's like the British are on the beach looking at the tide going out going, wow, while the rest of Europe is shouting tsunami.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And I actually did that a few times. I actually yelled tsunami a few times online because I just couldn't anymore. You know, I felt like saying literally, I am your ghost of Christmas future. Stop worrying about toilet paper. We've got loads of toilet paper, but stay home. Seriously, this is, and as everybody's realized now, but Lombardy, oh my God, Lombardy's got about 10 million people, and we had pretty much the concentration of the infections and the deaths. I think, it was all, very much concentrated in our area. So it's been a bloodbath. I'll be honest. And lockdown has been very, very hard. There's no, I've seen videos of British coppers, very nicely asking people if they could, go home. You can't do that in Italy. It's just, that's just not happening. It's very, very strict. We have to fill out a form before we leave the house, and we're allowed out once a week to shop, one person per family, to the nearest shop and back home. That's it.
Wow.
And if it's thousands of euros fines if you get caught. You can't just go for a drive because you're bored. It's just in the house, lockdown. That's it. So my last shop I managed to make last 2 weeks. I was going to see if I can make the next one last until we get opened up again. So, but I've got used to it now. It was tough to begin with, but then you do. The wonderful thing about human beings is that we can adapt to anything. So yeah, I'm fine now. I'm settled in. I may never leave. I may never go out again.
It has proven how many. Two things from a worker standpoint. It's proven the value of key workers and where really essential workers are in our society, and where they're not maybe so much. And also, it's kind of I think. Kind of made people realise how many, particularly with regards to offices, I hear this from a lot of office workers, how many jobs can be done from home and how maybe the daily commute isn't an essential thing to do, Exactly.
There are so many good things to be taken away from this, and that is, if we could keep all of the traffic off the roads for crime is down, our car accidents are down. pollution is down. There's all, so there are a lot of good things that have come from this, although it's a horrific situation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, just saying that the whole lockdown situation has led to a wonderful sort of, the waters of Venice are clear. The pollution over Los Angeles the smog is gone. And, maybe we could keep a little bit of that. That would be great. And also that understanding of what is really important and what isn't. All of a sudden on lockdown, you realize that, that my wardrobe full of clothes is just pretty useless, really.
Yeah.
In the scheme of things, my 200 pairs of shoes really weren't necessary.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, I mean, where is Italy at the moment then, in terms, because you've gone through are those restrictions still in place in terms of like the one trip to the local shop every? Okay, yeah, so what's the prospect? Yeah. How much longer do you reckon?
They say May the 3rd, but rumours are it could be extended to May the 15th, and it's going to be opened up very slowly and very carefully, because we are still at 3,000 odd new cases a day, even though, so we've gone down from, the peak of, it was like, 8,000, 9,000 new cases a day. And we're a tiny country, and it was all concentrated in an area the size of London. 1,000 deaths a day. It was really, really bad. So, and I remember the first day it was 1,000 new cases in the 24-hour period, and it was like, what? This is unimaginable. And now I'm thrilled because we're at 3,000 new cases a day. So it's all relative, but it's still, we've got to be very, very careful, and it's going down, but we're all so locked down. Masks and gloves are obligatory. It's, it's very, very, we're being very, very careful, and yet still people are being infected thousands a day. So it's going to be a long and slow to open up. And I'm not doing that countdown. I'm just living each day as it comes. Because if you drive yourself crazy, if you bank on that day being when we can, it will let up, and then it doesn't happen. It gets extended again. So I'm just not thinking about that.
I think as well, not to take it to too dark a place either, but I was always having friends I know in international places. When it first started kicking off in the UK, I kind of had a bit of a handle on how bad it potentially could get, as opposed to particularly on the school run. I heard a lot, oh God, I'm going to go a bit personal now, but on the school run, I'd hear a lot of ignorance just at the school gate about it. And you'd be kind of like, we need to kind of take this a little bit more seriously. And it's now, and I think we're 3 to 4 weeks into lockdown now, maybe 3 weeks, but we're now dealing daily with messages from friends or family who have people who are directly being affected by it in the most sort of, in the most dark way, really, at the moment. So now the reality of that is that's now going to be a daily thing for a long time, that we're going to know people. Do you know what I mean? And it just starts creeping a bit closer and closer to home,
Exactly. You start off, I noticed this from beginning, you start off being concerned about it's an inconvenience. Concerts are being cancelled, and oh my God, I've got, they're going to give me a refund and things like that. It's just inconvenient. Then you start worrying about your business. Then you start worrying about whether you and your loved ones are going to get through this alive. And then it changes completely. So I was at the point where I was worried about if we would get through alive. And I'm listening to people complaining about, in the UK and in the US, complaining about their Broadway tickets being cancelled. And I'm just like, okay, you're not there yet, but I really hope you don't get there. But unfortunately, yeah, it just went. But you know what? I was the same. At the beginning, I was very like, oh, for heaven's sake, more people die of the flu. And, we all did that. And then we all have that moment where we go, oh, and then you realize what's actually going on. So, it's understandable. We all come to the realization in our own time.
Yeah, the realization, the quibble I've had, and this is such a minor quibble in the scheme of things, but the quibble, because we've slowly been dealing with more and more stuff over time. And it started with literally, so all 4 of our kids' grandparents are still alive. So my mum, my dad, and my wife's mum and dad, they're all alive and well and all that kind of stuff. But firstly, it started with just managing them because they were like, oh, well, I've just gone to the shop to go and get the prescription. That's fine. I'm like, no, that's not fine. Like, we'll do it for you, and we'll leave it on the bag on the doorstep and all this kind of stuff. And you're parenting your own parents?
No. Okay, right. This is a worldwide phenomenon. The older generation it's worse than trying to explain to kids. They do not want to give up their freedom.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a
In Italy, we've got hilarious viral videos of policemen screaming at old age pensioners, you know, telling them to get back home, and they're like, you know, well, not terribly concerned. But hilariously, I had one of my retouchers that I hire. I don't think he thought about my age, but he just said to me, "How's it going in Italy? You know, I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm terribly worried about you, but don't worry. I've heard it's only old people over 40." So, and I went, "Okay, I'm going to be 48 this year, but thanks."
So while we wind back from that, a genuine conversation with one of our parents, and I won't say who, but genuine conversation with that one. They said to me, "Look, don't worry. Look, I've read the statistics, James, and it's absolutely fine. It only affects the over 70s, and I'm 69." What are you talking about?
Fantastic. Oh,
so that's the big thing where you're just like, no, you got to now you suddenly grow up, I suppose, in a way, you know, which I'm trying to not do. Let's talk about more positive things, shall we? Let's talk about your photography, which is, I'm going to put you over now, but so I was fortunate enough, and I'll tell you this now. So I judged at WPPI this year in, I can't remember what my categories were in the room, but I saw a couple of your images come through just because I recognized them from previous awards. So I stepped off the panel.
Okay.
Right. Not to, because I full clarity. I want full clarity in awards. Okay. So every time I just stepped off, but the printing on them, which is becoming a forgotten art, is sublime, Sarah. The prints that come through are just pin perfect. And I want to say that at the start, because we're going to look at digital images today. And a lot of people are going to look at digital images on their phone, and they're going to watch this video on their phone and go, "Oh yeah, that's all some nice images." When you see a print, you just want to reach out and grab it. Yeah. That's what comes across in your work. Do you put the quality of your prints, do you put it entirely down to the people who print them for you, which I believe is Graphy, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Or do you put it down to your care in post-processing, and how do you approach your post-processing? This is before we go into the images. Just speak to that.
Okay, right. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to record 2 versions of my answer. You can publish one version to be viewed by the guys at Graphy, and then another one. No, I'm kidding. I'd say. Well, first of all, I've only ever trusted Graphy Studio with my printing. I just know I'm very, very familiar with their printing process. I love their HD fine art prints. I feel that, aside from feeling comfortable, it just has the best detail, the best clarity, I just love the soft tones. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. And so from my very, very first print competition entry until printing my fellowship panel, I've always used them, and I've always used the HD fine art print. I just absolutely love it. But you can't give them a subpar file and expect them to produce something. You know, they can only work with the raw materials that they've got. So I would say it's both. It works hand in hand.
Yeah, of course. I think, and also I think, no, we're going to make it supplier centric. This, so I am an ambassador at the Print Foundry, and the reason why I'm an ambassador at the Print Foundry is because of all the things you speak to with regards to Graphy, I get from them. But now I get on very well with Jeremy at Graphy, right? But I get on very well with Renato, and Renato always looks after me.
Great guy.
The point of this is that it's not a them and us kind of thing. The point of it is, in terms of like supplier relationship, is like, I remember Paul Wilkinson saying this to me years ago. He said, find a supplier, stick with a supplier, be loyal to your supplier, and they will be loyal back to you. Yes. Do you know what I mean? And building these personal relationships, whoever it's with, as long as they give a damn, they will look after you, and you will get sublime service at the end of it. You know,
exactly. I mean, I've worked with Graphy for a long time. I've heard great things about the Print Foundry as well. They really know what they're doing with fine art prints, and But I mean, just things like, when I won my second first, they said to me, if you win again at WPPI, we're going to fly the Welsh flag from the Graffi building. And lo and behold, when I got my second first place award, the video came through from my sales rep and Francesco and Francesca, and they were flying a big, huge printout of the Welsh flag from the building. I mean, it was just wonderful. It was great, and it's still up there. They've still got the Welsh flag up in.
Have they?
Yeah.
Little things that mean a lot, One of the prettiest flags in the world, that one, the Welsh one. I like the Welsh one.
It is the coolest flag on the planet. Come on.
No. So I've always liked the Union Jack. I don't like what some people have taken it to represent, but I really like the design of the Union Jack. I think it's really, really cool. But what other flag has got a dragon on it?
Come on, we win. That Wales wins in terms of flags. It's the coolest flag on the planet. Well, my mum has got one in her garden flying. She loves it.
Has she?
Yeah.
My oh god, this is going down a route. I'm just going to go with it anyway. Who cares, right? Sorry if you're watching and you want to see Sarah's images. They're coming up literally in 2 minutes.
I promise.
But my friend is from Austin, Texas. Kim, a friend of mine who married a very good friend of mine, Ryan, and they live in Cornwall now. And they bought a new building, a cul-de-sac in Cornwall. And Kim's first thing was to get a flagpole nailed to the outside of the house with the Texas flag up. And then they got a real nosy neighbour, a real curtain twitcher. Next week he had a flagpole in his garden because it was around about the time of Brexit, stuck a Union Jack on it. So she then put a second flagpole up with the EU flag on. Texas and EU. She's the best. Let's go and talk about your images. Sorry.
I love it. Way to get on with your neighbours.
I've gone a little bit off to it. Let's go for this. Here we go. So, image number 1.
Yes.
Speak to me on this one.
Okay, so this is one of the reason that I like this is because the story of the picture came as a result of a few things that didn't go quite according to plan, and I love it when that happens. So this was actually taken. So last year's images I didn't have time for any personal projects, which I thought, this year's going to be a washout because I was convinced that I had to do a specific shoot for competition in order to get anywhere. So this was a lighting setup shot during a workshop I was doing in the UK. And I'd wanted the makeup artist to do pre-Raphael. The model has very long blonde hair, and I wanted sort of curls and a very pre-Raphaelite look to go with this outfit that I'd chosen. And because I was busy teaching, I hadn't noticed that the makeup artist had done her own thing and gone with this very modern glossy makeup and this slick back hair, which wasn't what I had in mind at all. But I thought, okay, well, instead of doing a classic Rembrandt sort of light, because of the very modern makeup, I'm going to go with a sort of a beauty, very specular highlights, beauty dish, a bit of rim light, and let's go with that and see what happens. And her costume was too tight, and it was actually causing her boobs to sort of squish the band, and the boob was coming out either side, and so that was a bit of a problem. And I said, don't worry, I'll put the boobs back in Photoshop. But then I realized that the whole point of this is the contrast between modern and classic and male and female. It's that those contrasts. So I decided to really play on that, make her flat-chested, make her look almost androgynous. In fact, it's called androgyne. And so that's a situation where a mistake can actually bring out the strengths of the picture. And I think ultimately it's a much more interesting picture, a much more interesting portrait as a result.
Yeah, beautiful marrying up of the lipstick and the red dress just draws your eyes sort of from one to the other, but and a really simple hand placement as well. So many people, and I spend so long trying to avoid talking about hands on these things, but so many people struggle with hands early on in their photographic journey as a creative. But you've chosen a very, very simple way for them to be held here.
Yes, I started off with much more dramatic poses. I realized very quickly it wasn't working. There's so much going on in the picture that I decided that just a very, very simple neutral pose would work well, because otherwise it's too much. The makeup, the ruff, the costume, it's all fighting for each other. So Yeah, that's why I love the picture. And I spend a lot, it's heavily retouched. There's a lot done in terms of retouching. Nothing has been changed. The picture is as the raw file, but it's very heavily retouched because my intention was to keep it in the portrait category of WPPI now, because they were very strict this year, and because I copied and pasted a piece of the ruff to fill in a gap around her neck, that was construed this year as compositing, so it got shunted into the contemporary portrait, which traditionally is for composites. So I was a bit gutted at that because I went to great lengths to keep it in camera as much as possible and to stay within the rules of pure portrait. And because knowing your category in competition is vital. You have to understand the category that you are entering in order to score well. And if it's not quite in the right category, then it can score negatively. It did okay, though. Got 87, so I was pleased with that.
That's okay, isn't it? 87? Take that.
I was hoping for 90, I'll be honest.
Okay, right, I see. High bar, no, that's fine. It's fine to have high standards. It's all good. Next one.
Yeah, so this is just a wedding day. The reason I love it, it's because it just seems very striking to me. It's got lots of impact, lots of imperfections. The dress, I didn't have time to fix the dress. Very, very fast. I had 10 minutes to do all of the bride and groom pictures. I think that's the Instagram version, so it's quite a low resolution.
Yeah.
This isn't perfect by any means, but I really love the color palette. I love the boat going by. It really captures the day, and this went bananas on Instagram. It was
really.
I think it had something like 3,000 likes or something crazy.
Wow.
So that one did really, really well. But yeah, it's just one of my favorite wedding images. And one thing that I'm very thrilled at is that I've seen it copied a lot ever since. So at this particular venue. So that's always a good sign if you're being copied.
So 3,000. So you're on sorry, I'm going to talk Instagram now just a little bit. Yeah. Sorry. I'm going to take it off. So you're at 17,000 followers on Instagram at the moment.
Yeah.
And this one was posted. So from my experience, your average number of likes is about sort of 5% of your follower base. So if you've got 10,000 followers, for example, you can expect about 500 likes per photo. If you've got 100 followers, you can expect 5. Does that make sense? So 3,000 is massive. Was this organic?
I honestly, I don't want people to go on and go, actually it was 2,500.
Oh no,
but it was a lot.
no. But to have a percentage that's that measurable is a lot. Was this completely organic?
Completely organic. Yeah. I didn't
promote
it. And I think I have neglected my Instagram, so I'm not an expert, but I did for a while concentrate. I had an assistant who was into Instagram, and I said, how does this thing work? And she said, you've got to follow loads of people, you've got to like, you've got to comment like mad. So I said, okay, right. You can sit there for an hour a day and that can be your job. You just go and do your, social media stuff. And then for a while I was on it. I was commenting and posting and liking and trying to engage a lot. And that really worked. I haven't had time for ages. So I've been, and my followers went up dramatically very, very quickly, but then kind of plateaued out. I don't know how people get to hundreds of thousands because it's I seem to have reached saturation now. But
right. I think there's a saturation point with any outside of celebrity. There's a saturation point with any business, So for example, there's only so many people who are into photography. There are only so many people who are into these niche sort of things. So you do hit that point. But I mean,
unless you buy the sort of the fake followers and all of that, which I know people do because influencers have told me who have got like 500,000. They're like, oh, just buy them.
Yeah, right. And it gives you that perception of popularity. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move away from Instagram. Here's the next one. Let's go to this one.
Okay, right. So this is a really old picture. This, I think, is 2012, 2013. But I love it because it was kind of a look into the future of what would eventually become my style. But it was my first experimentation with this sort of look. There are things that I would change about it now that I would do differently. It's over-sharpened, which I don't do anymore. The skin tones are a little bit too bright. I would bring that down a little bit. I would give it a much more breathing space now. But considering I was fairly new into my photography career, and also this was the first picture that scored a silver in competition, my first time entering. And I entered a whole series of images that were much more recent and trendier, I suppose, much more in line with fashions of the time. And they all did really badly. And yet this old picture did really well. And so I thought, I'm onto something here. I need to look at this a little bit. And so that's the reason that I love it, in that it was kind of my sort of a dipping my toe into what was to become my future style.
So what other things were you shooting then in that case, away from this more classical style at the time?
So at about that time I was doing, I had another business and I was shooting weddings part-time and portraits part-time, but it was very much, in terms of portraits, it was the occasional client who would approach me, and a lot of time TFP with models like this one here, which was my practicing, which was my playing, which was how I learned and grew and built up a portfolio.
So that trade for isn't something to be sniffed at either. And I see that a lot from other photographers. I shot my associateship with a lot of trade for models.
I still do it now I have a team. I have favorite models I love to work with, one of which is in that first image. And I still, when I'm feeling like, oh God, I need to do something creative, I call up my makeup artist and stylist who, for many years I did everything myself, but for the past year and a half or so, I've had a great stylist who's much better at it than me. I don't have any fashion sense really. And she knows loads of models, and I said, oh, come on, let's do something together. And so we all get together and we collaborate. Oh God, I need that, like oxygen. It's my playtime, because I don't want to experiment with clients. I want to experiment with, it's not fair to experiment with clients.
No, of course not. And by the time you've got clients, then you should have like a brief. You should have like a goal to achieve something. It's not the space to be trying different things. And I think
exactly. And also, it's the work that I've done creatively has always been my biggest marketing. Always. Right.
Yeah.
I've got so much, and the same goes for competitions. Work that I've developed for competition that's been playing has actually gone on to earn me thousands in clients
through reciprocal business, right? Yeah.
Not the awards, the pictures. They've gone, I've never seen anything like this. Who are you? What's this? I want that, but pregnant. That's what one client actually said to me. I want that picture, but with me being pregnant, and then that's led on to other things. So it's my creative, unpaid, free, waste of time work has been my biggest marketing always.
I want that, but pregnant is a wonderful way to look at it. It's a really powerful marketing tool. I think also, because awards get sniffed at a lot by large sections of the photography community, I think they are right and I said this in a seminar, they're right. Awards are worthless, completely worthless if they're sitting on the actual, this thing, like just sat over here. It's just sat over here. But what I do with it, how I promote it, how I use it, how I use the images, which is a really interesting point you bring up, to promote my services to other people. So I'm just talking about me now, sorry. But when I won that one, that was like a sports photography award. Within a week, I had a video on my YouTube channel showing people how I shot it. Like a tutorial video, like a one saying, well, this was the moment that it happened, and this won me this thing, and this is why you should employ me for your sports event. And I got a load of sports bookings off of it.
Fantastic. Well, I've always been a bit, I like to look at my awards to make on low days, I look at them and polish them a little bit. They make me feel better, but they're, useless in terms of clients aren't impressed whatsoever. It means nothing to them. It means it could, literally at one point I put my price list behind my awards, and they would just reach over the awards completely, just not interested. But that doesn't mean that it's worthless, because as I said, what has got me work are the pictures that won me those awards. And the fact that it's made me a better photographer. No question. Absolutely,
unquestionably. Let's get back to the shared screen. We're going now onto the next image, which is here.
Yes. Oh, I love this because it was... this again was a play shoot. Many UK photographers will recognise the model, Holly. She's a very well-known fine art nude model, and I I've been wanting to photograph her for years. And then I was in Wales and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to book this model and I'm going to finally shoot her. And this was just, I just love it. My mum has this huge on her wall, a huge fine art version.
Your mum?
My mum, yeah. She loves nude. She has sort of artist nudes all over the house. And so I'm very flattered.
Wow.
First, true fine art sale. And that somebody has it on, yeah, she has it on her wall in the living room.
It's a beautiful marrying of tones. What's the texture that she's lying on? What have you set there?
This is actually stuff that it's a mixture of my mum's curtains and some fabric that Holly brought with her. That's
why mum's got it on the wall. She's proud of her curtains.
She's very proud of her curtains. They're very nice curtains. And, I'm very, very honoured that she took them down for me so that I could lay Holly on them. Yes, the idea was to have an analogous colour palette and to create something that was very striking and colourful, but at the same time that would look beautiful on a wall. And this is natural light shot in my mum's living room.
Wow, so that's just coming through the window?
Yeah, just coming through the window.
Amazing.
But I always use the window as if it's a softbox and the softbox as if it's a window. So I I'm very careful to position, whether it's a bride or a model or a client, I position them very, very carefully. It's never random. I'm always thinking and looking at the light as well.
Yeah, lovely. Sorry, I've gone to stop share for no reason whatsoever, and I'm giving you an audio commentary on that. So that's a treat for everyone, isn't it? Right, here we go. Next image. There we go.
Okay, this is the same model, and I had my eye on this window in a building for some time, and this is where I was deliberately working with complementary colours. Mm-hmm. And I very, very carefully thought about the pose and the shapes and the light and the editing, just there was a great deal of care that went into it. I possibly regret the haziness at the top that I added now. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's adding anything, but I wanted it to look like a beautiful painting rather than just a photograph, and I'm very proud of this one.
But this is it. You mentioned like the haziness, and you mentioned that this is what's coming to my mind with regards to this. Although we're selecting 10 images that we're very, very proud of, very rarely do I meet a photographer who's 100% happy with everything that they see in the image. Do you know what I mean? Your eye always goes to something that you would change.
Oh my God! Oh God! If you want to go back, I can give you detailed commentary about everything that's wrong.
Absolutely not. But I think that's the pursuit. That's the pursuit that we all set ourselves as creatives. Absolutely. And it comes into the line of not of plagiarism, but just of not creating your own ideas, to looking at other people's ideas and going, oh, I want to do that, and not putting your own spin on it. And I think they sort of go hand in hand in terms of I think because what strikes me about this image is how much it's like a Renaissance statue. How much I just looked at it and just thought, oh, you would see that in a gallery, or you'd see that in some church in Rome or somewhere. And the fact that you clearly have influence from that, but you've taken it and put your own complete spin on it.
Yes, and I hope that it's something that it doesn't look like. For the past few years now, I've been deliberately not looking at any of the work of my peers unless it's at competition. I unfollowed all of my peers, my lovely friends, and I sort of said, don't get offended if I don't comment on your stuff. I just didn't want to be influenced by anybody other than I just looked at Pinterest artists, maybe Peter Lindbergh or Irving Penn. Okay, look at that. But otherwise, it's just too easy to try. And I deliberately wanted to start trying to create something that was different. And the only way I could do that was just to clear my not have any of it going in at all, no input whatsoever, So I was very, very selective about that. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. I look more at my friends' stuff now, but I try not to dwell on it. I try not to pay attention to what's going on there, because I got to a point where, okay, I could replicate something perfectly. Now the next step is to try and develop something that's mine.
Yeah, that's really interesting what you've just said there in terms of a piece of advice. And I think that's not only a piece of advice for someone struggling in the industry or someone coming new to the industry, or that's a piece of advice for people who've achieved stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's not, you need to get to a certain I don't want this to sound wrong. What I mean is that emulating is a brilliant training technique, and it's great to get you up to a level of professional standard and being able to produce something that maybe market demands. So something that's very popular in the market that can get you work. But then if that's all you can do, you're producing the same as everybody else. And then all that's left is to compete on price and location. So the next step is then to try and move on from that.
And that's not just replicated in success with your customers and success as a business in terms of differentiating you. When you're judging at awards, it's success at awards, because when you start producing stuff that's different, I always say this to people, if you put something different in a category, say if we just pick on newborns for a bit, but if you see baby in bowl, baby in prop, baby in basket, baby in bowl, baby in prop, baby in basket, bomb, 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 you can be as objective as you want, and you can be as neutral as you want. As soon as you see something different, it's got a chance. It genuinely has, you know?
Feel it, when literally the whole panel goes like this, and we all get, it's like, oh, this is interesting, finally something. Because a mistake that so many people make, we all make it, is that you see something that's won and you think, I can do that, so if they've won, I can do the same and then I'll win. It doesn't work like that. If something wins one year, you've got to then find something else, because you might get, at that point, if it's been done and it's been seen, it'll never get, it might, if it's done exceptionally well, it might get an 82, an 83. It'll never go any further than that. That's just the way it works. It has to have impact and originality, and that's when you start getting up into the higher levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great advice. Superb. Sorry, let's go back to it. Sorry, I'm taking up, I talk, I'm sorry. Right, let's go. Next.
It's all right. We're both talkers.
Leap.
Oh, okay.
What a moment.
I am proud of this because this is not composited, apart from I've extended the bottom to make it look like she's jumping much higher than she is, or she's falling. But other than that, this is captured in camera, and a similar picture from the same shoot I entered in camera artistry at WPPI, which got, I think, an 86. Because I made this poor girl, what a trooper. She is a dancer with the Arena di Verona. And I made her dance until she lined up perfectly on that background, which is in the studio. It's a studio in Milan. There were some big bolts on the wall, which I removed, but those big tiles are there. And I wanted her expression perfect. I wanted her hands perfect. I wanted her feet perfect. I wanted it all in camera. I didn't want to be pasting arms and legs to get the perfect shot. I wanted to get it right in camera. I was really concentrating at this stage, which was another step forward, paying attention to in-camera artistry for every picture, for every. This was a creative shoot, a collaboration, again, with a group of dancers that I got together from all over Italy. But I love this. I'm very proud of it. It's not perfect, as always, but ultimately I'm very proud of it because of the level of difficulty of the shot. It was a very, very difficult shot to get in camera.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got like everything, the placement of everything, the look, the styling, just everything there is just great. And like, there's no better feeling though. Because this athletic kind of moment is right up my street.
Yeah.
There's no better feeling. I still maintain this to this day. You can spend hours in front of a computer and digitally manipulating your images and making all these things work. There's no better feeling than hitting that shutter and knowing you got it in camera.
You just looked at, oh.
Exactly. It is that sound though. It's like, come on, you know. It's still the best.
Especially as I never use burst mode or, like that. I always get, I wait for the moment. And because I've tried doing burst mode, I had a Sony A9 at one point, 20 frames per second. And I thought, this is going to be fun. And I just thought, I'm never going to use this. So I swapped it out for an A7 after, A7 after. I can never get it right.
Really good. You're an ambassador for them, right? No, I'm joking.
Not yet. Hi, available.
Sort out those letters and numbers first, and then I'm so sorry. But yeah, no, like I said, that feeling is great. And I just recently did a video where I took people ringside on a wrestling show to show them how I shoot the ringside action, because I wanted to show people, because I've heard people say, oh, we must use burst mode to get the right, and I'm like, no, I haven't got time to edit burst mode. Who's got the time? So I'm just going to, do it one at a time.
Especially when they're sort of 45 megapixel files. But no, you can't, I always find that no matter how fast the burst mode is, the moment you want is in between those two, those two frames. You can never get it. There's just no, I can get it if I wait and I time it. I can't get it if I just do the burst mode.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our next image, away from the athleticism displayed here, on to, that was too close. See, it was too close to my other button. I've been so good so far. There we go. Here we go.
Okay. Oh, this is another one. This was the first, I was mentoring under Luke and David Edmondson.
Okay.
And they taught me or encouraged me, challenged me to create a vision before. Up until that point, I had been shooting with a vague idea, finding this looks good, and maybe I'll retouch this one, seeing what happened, and then developing it from that point. They encouraged me to visualize a concept, a picture, an idea, and then bring that to life. So this was my first attempt at this. And this is not this isn't a fake cloud background. This is actually shot in a swimming pool with dry ice. And she's lying on some boards, and there's scaffolding above her, and I'm shooting from the scaffolding down. And so there's about, I can't remember if it was 10 kilos or 20 kilos of dry ice that we threw in to the pool. I got her, the one thing I did composite in was her hair, because the concept of it is, it's called Leap of Faith.
Right.
And the image I had in my mind was of an angel falling through the clouds backwards. So I wanted to have her hair coming forward and to have that image of an angel falling backwards through the clouds. Now, it didn't, because I was trying to get it all in camera, I wasn't able to get the skirt flowing up as I wanted to, and I had to composite in I got her to flip her hair, and I put that in because I was getting her to sort of do a V to come up with her legs and her body, so she was sort of doing a Pilates V core exercise while the tear was rolling down her cheek, which was just a happy coincidence from the sun, the light just blinding her basically and making her eyes run. That was fantastic. It was, I was like, awesome. She's like, can I wipe my eyes? I'm like, no.
Try more.
Yeah. So obviously I retouched out there's underneath her that you can see the board, and I retouched that out. But all of that cloudiness, and the blue is the swimming pool underneath.
It's amazing. Seriously, because like when you start to tell that story about the effort that's gone into that, and the thought process behind it, and the motivation and the story you're trying to tell, that's all this series is about.
Exactly. And it was the first time I'd say that I came very close to achieving what I had in my mind. Now, when I first looked at the pictures, I went through them, I tried a few, and I thought, this didn't work. This has failed. I went to all that effort and it's failed, but it doesn't matter. I wasn't upset. I just thought, oh, well, I learned a lot, on to the next one, because I had lots of ideas that I wanted to play with. But then all of a sudden I found the right picture and it all started to come together. So I didn't give up. And what I was also trying to get across with this picture was the leap of faith of letting go, not knowing if you're going to land, having no idea if it's going to work out, but just having that trust and throwing yourself into something. And that was the look at that's what I'm trying to get with the expression on her face. That's what she was coached to give. And it was all connected to my work as well. Entering competition is a massive leap of faith. It's a huge blow to the ego if you don't do well. And I know how difficult it is. And I know some people suffer terribly if they don't do as well as they anticipated. And it was kind of all connected with that. And later on, it had other meanings as well. But at that time, that's what it was about. And the wonderful punchline is that it got a 77 in competition.
Get in.
Which is just perfect, And David Edmondson, this was for the online version, and David Edmondson said, no, listen, you've got to re-enter it for the print. I said, no, that would ruin it. 77 is perfect, because that's what it's all about. You know, you just have to throw yourself. Sometimes you land, sometimes you don't. You just get up and you carry on. So I wanted to leave it there as it was, because it was too perfect.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely did the right thing.
It doesn't, but the value is in the journey, and the journey was the beautiful thing, not the score at the end.
Can fate be altered? No. It's brilliant. I love it. It's fantastic. What a fantastic story. That's absolutely brilliant. Let's move on to our next one here. This is the one I sat out on.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think we judged maternity, so yeah, I must have sat out on this one.
So the skin's looking a bit grey there.
Was it?
No, that's better. Okay.
There you go.
So this was the I was undecided as to whether to pick the original one I did, but I could only pick 10. I decided to pick this one. So this is the client who said, I want that, but pregnant. So 2017, I scored a 90 in the fashion category with a picture of a redhead model in a very similar pose, but she's got her arms up and very elegant, but the same top hat and a skirt that I built entirely in Photoshop, surrounding her in a circle, and then clouds in the background. And this is an actual client who said, I want that picture, but pregnant. And we did many different setups, but this is one. We did all the traditional ones. We did some of the classic ones, and then right at the end, we started to get a little bit more adventurous and a little bit more fantasy, because she wanted something really, really special. And I made it slightly different in that I used only part of the bit of the bottom part is just gradients all repeated and put together to create the skirt at the bottom, and then I threw the fabric around a little bit to create the side pieces coming
added
up.
On, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I thought the oval just framed it perfectly, and I'm just proud of it, because this was a very well-paying client who brought me lots of other well-paying clients, all based on one competition image that I shot time for print. So that was a pretty good return on my investment.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I mean, and I was going to ask you about the oval frame, but you kind of answered it in terms of what the motivation behind the choice was, because we've seen it a couple of times with you here.
Yes, so I've seen it. I've seen other photographers do it, and I thought that's interesting. And in this one in particular, there was a lot of space that just wasn't making sense. It just wasn't adding to the image, even though I like to give breathing room, but the square just wasn't quite working. And so just to see, I decided to see what it looked like. And of course, it just reflects her curves and her belly, so it just works perfectly. And Graphy had just started doing oval mats as well, so I thought, why not? She's
absolutely stunning as well. What do we is this with a makeup artist on set with you here?
Yes, so she is very beautiful. She's extremely beautiful. I mean, when this client came to me, I just had competition signs in my eyes. I mean, she's just gorgeous. I usually do hair and makeup myself, but in this case, I had a makeup artist with me. But on almost all of my pictures, I do the hair and makeup myself.
Yeah, cracking. And just
actually, the reason I had the makeup, it was because my makeup artist got me the client, so I figured that fair's fair.
I think as well. Yeah, I think as well. Like it's the marrying up of lots of. It's this perfect storm. So this was entered to WPPI this year.
Yes.
And scored, yeah.
I think it scored 86 at WPPI,
right.
But it got me Maternity Photographer of the Year, first place print in the maternity category at SWPP.
At societies. And I think what that is that it's just a combination of a lot of factors. It's a combination of excellent lighting. It's a combination of a very expressive model, I think is probably the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. Brilliant styling, little bits of composites that add to the picture, don't take away from the picture. They're not just put on for the sake of it. They're all adding to the narrative. The decision to place a top hat on top to give it a quirkiness to it and a little bit of a different feel, and marrying up of tones and colours throughout. We've got this, it's almost like a very monochromatic image because everything's greys and blacks working through it. And then the choice to frame it in an oval frame gives it that bit of something different. And that's why it stands out, because you're just doing all these simple things, but adding them on top of each other to create something that's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. And I'm always, especially with pregnant women, I am a huge fan of displaying them as very strong. And I've used the top hat a lot because clients have seen it in my pictures, and so they say, "Can I have the top hat?" But yes, I'm a real fan of showing them in very, very strong, powerful positions and poses and expressions, and not. I love the delicate maternity look as well, and I gave that to this client as well. But in terms of competition, I'm always looking for something a little bit different and something that maybe people haven't seen before.
Well, it's hard as well. It's hard to photograph a pregnant lady in a dress who's with long blonde hair and still stray towards androgynous.
Yeah. Which
you have again, and it's a theme running through. We've kind of gone. We're doing a lot with gender roles here. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I love strong, powerful pregnant ladies. It's a real contrast because usually they're portrayed as being, very sort of, which is lovely. I love it. I've got them. I've got her in poses like that, and they're beautiful. But I felt personally when I was pregnant, I felt $1 million, and I felt as powerful and as strong as could be. That's how I felt. So that's what I'm trying to.
And that's reflected, that's a reflection of you. It's brilliant. It's just brilliant. Let's go through this to the next image here, which I believe might be our last one. Or is it? Let's have a look. We are here. Can we see that one?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Lovely.
Again, so all of my favourites seem to be the ones with stories. And again, this was an accidental story. A lot of people might have heard this one. Things always be when you're shooting, even if you've got a very clear vision in mind, don't be afraid to go where destiny takes you. So I wanted her looking perfect. And I'm also proud of this because I made the corset, and I'm not handy at all. Hours with a glue gun, that was. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. I did her hair and makeup. I made the corset. I didn't have an assistant. I did it. So I'm proud of it for that reason, because it's all me. But then she was telling me, she sat down. I said, please take off your shoes, because let's do a few with no ballet shoes. And she took off her ballet shoes, and I saw that there were the ribbon marks sort of digging into her ankles after she'd been dancing. And I thought, oh God, I'm gonna have to wait now for these marks to go. And so she was telling me about the fact that she's 32 and her dancing career is over because she's too old to be a dancer, which just sounded bizarre to me. But that's the way it is. So all of a sudden she was sitting there, and I looked at her and I thought, she looks like a showgirl at the end of the performance, and the show's over, and she's at the end of her career, and it's soon all going to be over. And then all of a sudden, I went down to, I was going to put makeup on the ribbon marks, and then I stopped because I realized, no, wait, this is the story. This is the story. And I noticed her feet, they didn't have those blisters and the blood. That I added that in Photoshop. but her feet are naturally calloused after many years of dancing, even though she wraps her feet as dancers do. They're very calloused, and they're very proud of their calloused feet, dancers. And, you know, it's not something they say, it's not like they say, can you retouch my feet because I don't, you know, they're a mess. They're really proud of the work, the hard work that they have put into, you know, they've earned every callus and every, you know, the pain that goes into achieving the grace that they are able to achieve. And so all of a sudden, that was the story. It's the sacrifice and the hard work and the blood and the blisters and the pain that goes on into becoming this beautiful creature, which she clearly is. So that's why I love this picture.
This is a lesson, not I'm wishing to speak for you, but this is a lesson in adaptability. And it's a lesson in, so I relate very strongly to your story, to the story you share there about how they're proud of their calloused feet and their bent toes and all these marks and these little, because I'm wishing it brings back to wrestling, but all the wrestlers I work with are proud of their scars and their cuts and their bruises. And when they get cut during a match, they always come and find me before they find a medic. Like we had a row with a medic. Well, I didn't have a row, but a wrestler had a row with a medic at Wembley Arena because he came back from the match and he was streaming with blood. And he was like, where's James? Where's James? And the medic goes, no, you ain't got time for that. I've got to stitch you back up. And he literally he said, I've got to go and see James first. Oh my God, no. Go and sort yourself out.
Take the picture.
Right. So, but this is a lesson in improvisation. This is a lesson in adapting to away from your preconceived ideas to literally, and the moment from your story, and I'm speaking for you, but you observed something while you were just talking to her. This wasn't with an intention to get this shot. You just observed something and just went, no, do you know what? That's where I go with it now. And that's so commendable.
That's the picture. That's the story. Because this was, again, I'd been made aware through competition about the importance of storytelling. And sometimes you're like, it's so difficult to get that right because you can hit people over the head with it by being too obvious. You could be so subtle that people don't get it. So when you do manage to get the story, and she loves the picture, and I love the picture, so win-win. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it's absolute gold. It really is. It's absolute diamond dust, that one. It really is. So let's go on to your final one. If you'll excuse me. There we go. There's your final one.
Oh, this is where it all started. Okay, that's a good one to finish with.
We've done it in reverse. That's fine.
No, this is perfect. This is perfect. So this picture won. I entered the print competition after I did the online one with that golden-haired, elaborate one I showed you before, and I got an 80. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll give print competition a try, but I had no real expectations, and especially after I was print handling, and I was in a really tough room, and they all looked like hundreds to me. All of the prints just looked incredible. And I was in a room with Sanjay. Sanjay was judging, and I was his print handler. And he told me later that he's never seen a print handler pay so much attention to the judging process. I was just like a sponge, soaking it all up. I was like this, just, staring watching the faces of all of the judges and then looking at the prints. It was a wonderful learning experience. I did it for 2 years. And I entered this picture, which was from a real bride during a Trash the Dress. I mean, we decided to have a bit of a fun shoot. I did it for them for free. I really loved the couple. I wanted to get creative with them. And I was going to throw her in the lake, but she was pregnant. She was 6 weeks pregnant, and it was cold, and it was foggy and cold. So I said, I can't throw her in the lake. But if she miscarries, it's going to be my fault. So I went out into the woods behind my house, and I had her run through this little clearing, and there was just a little pool of light coming through the fog. And I instructed her to look up as she was running. And as I took the shot, and I thought, that's the one. I've got it. It's Snow White running through the forest, and I called this the Snow White Bride, and it won the Premier category. My first time entering print competition. So that was I felt huge pressure. So there's loads of issues going on here. So many things I I could fix, but I won't dwell on that. I added the birds from a wedding image that I had from an engagement. It was an engagement session. I took those birds and I added them badly to give her something to look at, because otherwise she just didn't seem to be looking at anything. I added more fog in Photoshop, which is a bit heavy-handed. But overall, I really loved the mood of the image, and it was so exciting to win, and it gave me such an impetus, a huge pressure. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. I thought, oh my God, now I'm going to be a one-hit wonder. I'm never going to be able to repeat this. But actually, it was the start of me. First of all, for 2 years prior to then, I hadn't done any creative shoots. I just shot wedding after wedding after wedding after wedding, underpriced portrait sessions, and I was burnt out. I wanted to quit photography. I'd had enough. Wow. It was miserable. It was miserable. Shooting 30 weddings in Italian heat is absolutely miserable. I was exhausted, doing all my own post-production, behind on everything, really, really burnt out. So this just gave me a whole new injection of life. And then I started shooting creatively again from that point onwards.
What would you say to anyone who, before this and is worried about after this, falling into that trap of shooting below value portraits, as you sort of quite eloquently put? How did you pull yourself away from that into sort of this high-end style and high-end business, I suppose?
Yeah, I have to say, winning the award was a huge. I felt like a massive fraud. I felt like I just won this big award, and I was a fraud because I was charging, 250 euros for a portrait session. I was embarrassed for myself. I thought this is. I'm letting myself down, but I'm letting everybody else down as well. Because if I'm good enough to win an award, then I'm good enough to I'm good enough to earn a living. So I gave myself a good talking to be honest. And I did cost of doing business. I worked it out, and I realized that I was actually paying my clients the honor of shooting them. And that was a huge wake up call, because, this is time taken away from my daughter, from my children, from myself. And, at some point you've got to get over yourself. I've been self-employed my whole adult life. It's only when I started doing photography, because it's creative and it's very personal, that I started to get all weird about charging money. Before, working in property, translation, no problem at all. No problem whatsoever charging people appropriately. All of a sudden with photography, you put your artist hat on, business hat goes off, artist hat comes on, and then you're a starving artist. But starving artist, if you're starving, you can't create. If you're starving, you can't create. If you're starving, you can't enjoy what you're doing. You just burn out, and nobody can continue it for long. Yeah.
Do you think we do that though? In terms of, it's very interesting you bring up the money side of things. That's a bit of real talk, really. Why do you think we do that to ourselves in terms of because I think you mentioned property. Okay. So if someone does, for example, if someone doesn't buy a house, you're going to find someone else going to buy that house. But if you've created something for someone, you can't, I think that's probably it, isn't it? You can't sell it to the next person.
Yeah. And and you don't take it personally. If somebody doesn't like that house, I don't go and cry. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you created something, or if somebody said, this is how I used to hear, people would go, wow, that's expensive. But they used to say that when it was 250 euros. They'll say it's expensive no matter how much it is. If it's 50 quid, they'll say it's expensive. Just stick a zero on it. Nothing changes.
Yeah.
Nothing changes. They still say the same things. And how I used to hear it is when they'd say that's too expensive, what I would hear is you're not worth it. Your work isn't worth it. And it is, and we've got to get tough though, because for some people it's not, and that's fine. For me, a Ferrari is not worth it. Is not worth the money. I could win the lottery tomorrow and I'm not buying a Ferrari. It's just, I don't see it. I don't see the value. I don't want a Ferrari. It is not worth it to me. It's not even worth 10 grand to me. Not interested. that doesn't mean that the Ferrari family are going to go and have an existential crisis because I don't value their product, right? So, it's very, very difficult. I still suffer from it. I still do.
It's a shame that, because there was a real potential for sort of like a brand crossover with your surname. I've
blown it now.
You've blown that one. That's that one done. No, I don't. No, but we were taught this. I was taught this age. Perception of value is different for different people. And where the example we always used to use was like, well, widescreen TVs, you can spend £700, £800, £900 on a TV you're going to change in 3 years' time. Exactly. This stuff you're not, going to change it in 3 years' time, hopefully.
The problem is that as creatives, we're notoriously bad at this, and it's no accident that musicians, actors, all creatives in every other part of the industry, they all have managers or agents to do this for them because they're bad at it. They need to be getting on with doing the creating and have a manager who handles the money. That's always how it works. We try and do it all and tend not to be very good at it. So some people are good at both. Some people are stronger on the business and don't really care about the quality of the photography, which is fine, absolutely fine. If you're serving a market, your clients are happy and you're producing, solid, just professional standard work, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to be a competition winner. You don't have to be, you don't have to win awards or want to be an artist. That's fine. But I'm very much, I kind of want to be an arty-farty artist.
But a couple of things I want to speak to on price as well, just before we wrap this up. I've shot church fairs for a relative of ours who's a vicar. So I've kind of done like, we'll just set up a stand and shoot some images and print them on site. And it's like, it's for the church. So we're not making any money. So we just knocked him out for a tenner on this printer sort of thing. Just £10 for a print, and occasionally you might get someone and get a lead and whatever. Still had people say £10 for a photo. Are you sure? That's a bit expensive. So it really doesn't matter. The second point about prices, when I used to work for Venture, they produced a product called The Elements, which was it was so anal. It was like metal, wood and stone. So there was a bit of marble and then there was a bit of wood, which was MDF chipboard. And then there was a bit of rust, it was a bit of metal that had been rusted by chemicals, right? So it was unique, it was bespoke. No one else was having this bespoke piece of rust, right? And then your image would be in the middle, right? Now, that existed on the price guide at £5,999. We didn't sell a single one. But the point of it being on the price list for £1 less than £6,000 is all of a sudden your £3,000 product didn't look that expensive anymore.
Anchoring.
And it shifts everything up.
Absolutely, it's anchoring. But so you're ex-Venture. I'm an ex-Venture client.
No. Which one did you go to? Not mine, hopefully.
I went to Bristol.
Oh, okay. If you'd come to me, it'd have been all out of focus and overexposed.
I still have it and I love it. And I do not regret the 5 years of financing that I took out to be able to afford it. So I wasn't a photographer at the time, but okay. I was possibly their easiest sale ever. I was just like, yeah, I want that. The biggest size, please. And my mum was with me as well, and she was like, "Yeah, I want that as well. What do we have to mortgage?" We were just, they couldn't believe their luck. But I've got the small one by my bed still of my son.
Wow.
And I've got the big one of me and my son. I just moved recently. It's down in my garage, but it's ready to hang. And it's been on my wall all these years since 2004.
And that's value. That's value. If you break that down over years, it's genuinely value. Yeah. And I don't, anytime I bring up Venture, I don't bring it up that often, but I genuinely don't have anything negative to say about it because it taught me where photography is on the pecking order in running a business. And spoiler alert, it's not very high. And in certain businesses, generally, it taught me the value of experience. It taught me the value of branding. It told me the value of perception. All these things that make my business survive, and I don't say that to diminish the impact and the value of the photography that anyone produces. If you do go on.
No, I was just going to say that I thought the photography was great. I mean, it's very simple, but it was, at the time, I was absolutely, wow. I thought it was incredible. I just thought it was very, very simple. It will look good. It's still, 2004. How long ago was that? Long time ago. It still looks fresh and modern. It still looks timeless, and it will still look great in however many years. So I'm not. I mean, I know they had a bad rap for hard selling. They didn't need to hard sell to me. So
They didn't, and they didn't. This is the thing. Oh, I'm not going to go deep dive, but we didn't. But the problem was you're trying to manage 120 studios, and it was eventually about 140 internationally. You can't micromanage everyone. Yeah. And the studios, genuinely, the studios that were successful were the ones that didn't hard sell, but it was the ones that sort of like, but anyway, but ultimately they were competing at a time, or they weren't competing at a time. They, in 2003, 2004, I think it started in 2002, the benchmark for high street photography in this country was Ola Mills. And Ola Mills, fine, I'm not here to bash them, but ultimately it was canvases of children and very traditional backgrounds and very traditional lighting with very traditional expressions. And Venture was the first one that tried to get natural expressions of your children, that tried to not have everyone just looking at the camera, tried to get personality, we encouraged you to bring things in from home so we could personalize your session for you and not make it look like everyone else's.
And people are still using it as a model.
They did something right.
I thought it was great. And I remember at the time thinking, this is good. I could do this one day. Maybe I'll do this one day. I remember thinking that.
Now you're doing it better, arguably. Sarah, what have you got to offer people over the coming weeks and stuff? Have you got somewhere people can go to find out more or be supported by you and your brand?
Absolutely. You can, first of all, there's sarahferrara.com, which is just my portfolio website, but there's links there to all my other things, which at the moment is I'm dedicated, especially now, to editing and retouching. So if anybody needs help clearing their backlogs or of wedding catalogs, or retouching for wall art, or pre-designing albums, for maybe contacting those clients who did JPEG only weddings, and you'd like to maybe try and upsell them an album now at this time where I think they value it, So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah.
And as someone who's in the future with regards to the situation globally at the moment, I ask this question of everyone who does this interview. I'll have to think of a different one when it's ended. What advice have you got for photographers who are struggling with regards to maintaining their business or even seeing a way through this time at the moment? You just can't see the wood for the trees. Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah, first of all, just don't panic. Just be calm at this moment. I went through a very dark period myself, and I did come out of it. Things do get better if you're in a dark place. First of all, mentally, the most important thing is mental health and physical health right now. That's the most important thing. There's nothing that can change the fact that we're in a global pandemic. Things aren't looking good for us right now. What I'm doing, I wouldn't suggest to anybody to do anything, but I can just say what I'm doing. And that's, I'm just taking one day at a time, and I am trying to reduce my personal expenditure down to an absolute minimum. So really, really trying to, I'm going to have to try. I'm working on the assumption that all of my weddings that have been, luckily I've reduced them to 10 this year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've reduced dramatically from the past because I wanted to develop my editing business. So I only have 10, but I'm in a place where the people who booked with me have they're not Italians, they're destination weddings coming to Italy, and sometimes, in one case, for example, all their guests are flying in from Australia. So rebooking and trying to reorganize a wedding of people who all have to organize flights for a new date, there's a very high risk that I might even have cancellations and not just postponements. Yeah. So I'm working on the assumption that I'm going to have to try and make my savings stretch as long as possible. I'm going to claim whatever I can from the government. I might be eligible for a loan. I might be I'm just going to try and live each day as it comes, reduce my outgoings as much as possible, and just be grateful for the little that we have and our health, and just stay mentally healthy and positive and not panic. Do you know what? We're all business people at the end of the day. We've built it once, we can build it again, right? So these are skills that we have as photographers that no matter what, if things get tough, yeah, they might get tough. They might not. A lot of our clients still have salary jobs, or they have 80% being paid by the government, so they're okay. So let's just get through this tough period, tighten our belts a little bit, like wartime, like our grandmas did in the war, and just get through it. And on the other side, there's going to be a huge boom. We need to be ready for it.
There you go. Positivity. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for being so honest in your sharing of your personal stories behind these images, and also for giving us a little window into what your experience has been over there during this time. This has been a really thoroughly enjoyable interview. Thank you so much.
It has, isn't it? I could chat all day.
Yeah. Sadly, I've got homeschooling to do, so I'm off. So I'll speak to you soon. Thank you, Sarah. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.